Hello and welcome to the September 9th, 2015 edition of the Paperboyz, a half-hour discussion of all things sports with the Waterloo-Cedar Falls Courier Sports Department. I am Assistant Sports Editor Jim Sullivan, filling in for Doug Newhoff, who is not here today. To my right is sports writer Nick Materos. To my left, another sports writer, Jim Nelson. And as befitting the season, it's going to be pretty much all college football all the time in this particular edition. Before we get into that, let's see what else might have happened in this day in history, September 9th in the past. Nick?
Looking at this week in sports history, it's kind of relevant. Steffi Graf in 1988 captured the Grand Slam with the U.S. Open Championship, and it's interesting now because last night Serena Williams defeated her sister in 3 sets to reach the semifinals of the U.S. Open, and she's going attempting to become the first woman to capture the Grand Slam since Graf did in 1988. And the interesting thing about that is Graf, when she won the Grand Slam, was only 19 years old, and now Serena's trying to do it at the age of 34 here.
It's always hard, I think, to try to point to someone in any sport, be it tennis, hockey, what have you, as the greatest of all time. But if one were willing to go down that road, it'd be hard to argue against Serena Williams, especially if she gets this done and has a Grand Slam at the age of 34, you said, right? Mm-hmm. Just a remarkable story.
Yeah, I think Martina Navratilova is up there with the longevity and such, but Serena definitely has dominated this era of tennis for sure.
And those of us of a certain age remember the days when Billie Jean King and Chris Everett dominated the sport, but that's far too long ago for some of us. Moving on, as I said, we're going to spend a lot of time today discussing college football, and unfortunately, there's a sad note to be had here with the passing the other day of former Iowa football player Tyler Sash. There was an autopsy scheduled for today, the day we record this. We don't know what happened, but there's been a lot of things said about what Tyler Sash was, who he was, and what he meant to Iowa football. So I put this up before you two. What do you remember when you think about that name? What did he mean to this state and to the University of Iowa's football player?
You know, there's a lot of things, but he was just one of those, one of the all-time great athletes. You know, I think coming out, he could have played basketball or football at the Division I level. And, you know, you remember he was just a hard-nosed guy. He seemed like he was always in the right place at the right time, and he won. Somebody was, if you look at it, he won 3 bowl games with Iowa and a Super Bowl in his first year with the Giants, I think. Just think of that in his football career. That's incredible. I mean, he won an Orange Bowl and an Insight Bowl, and I'm missing the other bowl they won when I was here. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and my lasting memory of him is I was covering the state cross-country tournament, and they were losing to Indiana badly, and then all of a sudden, you know, Indiana's going in to add to the score, and here comes Tyler Sash running out of the end zone with the ball, goes like 95 yards for a touchdown, and Iowa rallies to win like 55-40 or whatever it is, and an incredible game. So, but yeah, he was just a guy that, you know, played safety very well. You know, when he left a year early too, he had another year left, but he thought, I think his saving was, you know, he said that the National Football League means not for long, so he wanted to get it going. And he went in the first year, he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking of just 5 years ago, we went down to Iowa Media Day, and I had a chance to interview Tyler Sash and Brett Greenwood, and it's really tragic what has happened to both of those guys since. You know, you always kind of looked at him as one of those guys that had a really good sense of humor, great personality. He kind of paid a lot of attention to what Greenwood did and the example he set in the film room. I remember I looked back at that story yesterday, and it seemed like he was always one of those guys that was just at the right place at the right time and had a knack for making big plays. I remember I was at that Indiana game, and that pinball interception, you didn't even know really what happened until you saw it on the replay, but then you had the 3 interceptions against Iowa State, and I think Jeff Woody actually has a blog out on Tyler Sash today that I read too that was very insightful. But, you know, it's a guy that meant a lot to a lot of people in this state, and his highlights, you know, definitely will live on from that era.
I was going to recommend, Nick, and I'm glad you brought it up, the Jeff Woody blog. Here's a fellow that was an opponent of Tyler Sash for many, many years, and along his journey through football at Iowa State and in the years past that, he became an understanding of what roles would have been to have some things taken away from you, part of your life taken away from you. And I would recommend to anyone who wants to learn more about the mindset of an athlete or the mindset of just a young man, read Jeff Woody's blog, and I think you'll find it insightful and even moving. The games, for better or for worse, will go on, and this happens to be the week that Iowa meets Iowa State in football. going into that, both teams are 1-0. Iowa beat Illinois State. Iowa State beat UNI. And let's go with the takeaways from those games in particular. Let's start with Iowa and Illinois State. What do you think? What impressed you the most about what Iowa was able to get done in beating Illinois State rather handily?
I think their defense. I mean, obviously you knew Iowa was going to have a good defense, but to shut down Illinois State's offense the way they did through 3 quarters of play was very impressive. You look at their linebacking core, Josie Jewell, the core of natives stepping up there, and it looks like he's starting to find his own. And I think really they established themselves probably better than most of us would have expected. I think last week we're talking like that's going to be a competitive game, and it really wasn't.
Yeah, it's the same thing. The defense impressed me. The offense, I think, is still a work in progress. I still didn't see him try to stretch the field with the receivers, and I think that's something they're going to have to do to open up that run game. I think the 2 left tackles, or the 2 new tackles, Butker and Myers, did a great job, and protecting the quarterback and opening some holes. So it was a very strong opening performance for Iowa.
One aside about Illinois State, I was very much disappointed in Illinois State's performance. It just seemed like they went in thinking that we were going to do what we do and that's going to be good enough, and it really wasn't. I don't think they used any imaginative approach to the game, nothing to get Coppridge out in space, nothing to help Trey Roberson. He was under pressure a lot. I don't think they really ever rolled him out or try anything. It just seemed like they were just content to run the basic stuff and go from there, and it really didn't work at all. Having said that, Iowa was impressive. And to me, it was almost more of a mental thing than anything. In past years, it looked like they've gone into these games without that mental edge you need for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but this time they looked sharp. They looked focused. They really didn't make many mistakes. Beathard did not give the ball away that I'm aware of. The backs took care of it. Nelly, you bring up a good point that we still don't know what that team can do offensively down the field. And sooner or later they're going to find out. But for week 1, they got done everything they had to get done. They won handily. They've got some momentum going. And we'll see how that works out in Jack Trice Stadium. Now then, as far as the Cyclones go, in much the same situation as Iowa, the Iowa State played an FCS team, a very good program in UNI. And after a rather tight first half, put it away in the second half. Nelly, you were there. What did you see from Iowa State that you liked?
Yeah, the most, again, it's the same thing we had with Iowa. The defense was really much improved. I mean, other than one drive, they basically shut down UNI. I mean, UNI couldn't get anything going in it. I think what they had, 13 tackles were lost, 6 sacks. Those are both season highs are the most they've had since 2005. They were great. There's so many, and they had UNI backed up every time. UNI had, I can't remember what it was, 15. It was double digits, 3rd and longer. Where 3rd and longer than 10 yards, and that's just incredible. UNI was always starting, losing. They won first down. That defense won first down every time. They showed a lot of 3-4, which they don't play. They have not played frequently in the past. They say they're going to still use that a little bit, but maybe depending on their opponent. So the junior college kids really gave them a bunch of athleticism, and they were rotating cornerbacks. They were playing 4 cornerbacks. I mean, it's a defense with depth, and it looks like right now a very strong start.
I didn't have a chance to watch the game. Obviously, I was in here on The Office, but I was listening on the radio, and it just seemed like Iowa State did a good job, obviously with the special teams in the punt return game there, and was able to take advantage of a lot of mistakes when they had the opportunity.
It's interesting. I was there too, of course, and Aaron Bailey took a lot of criticism for his pocket presence, but I thought to a large degree that was dictated by Iowa State's defensive line. I thought they played well. I thought the secondary covered UNI's receivers well. The Panthers really never got anything going downfield by design or by accident. The interception late in the second quarter by the defensive end, whose name I can't remember right now, is
Dale Pearson.
Dale Pearson, thank you. It was very important. He had 3 sacks. And you mentioned the 2005 season. That was the last time any Iowa State defender had 3 sacks in the game. That was Jason Berryman against TCU. I thought the offense for Iowa State got a bit of a bum rap too. Sam Richardson was solid. He didn't make any dramatic mistakes. The running game was decent. I think there's room for improvement there. The receivers, after a while, really made some plays, especially Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard looks like he's going to be the leader of the 3 Musketeers, if you will, as only a sophomore. And they do have some talent going with him. Quentin Bundridge has some ball security issues, but I think that will solve itself over time. And special teams, that was all Iowa State all the time. And interesting quotes from Mark Farley coming after the game that that was a poor special teams performance as you and I's had in a while, but a lot of that had to do with Lazard's individual talent. Now going into Saturday, it's Iowa State, 3:45 p.m. Jack Trice Stadium, televised on Fox. What's it going to take for the team, any team, Iowa State, to win this game?
That's a good question. I think you're going to need to see an offense come to life. See a team that can facilitate some things when the other team's not making mistakes. I think both teams are going to probably be pretty conservative. They're not going to put too much out there. But it'll be interesting to see which team can make some plays. Can a Lazard or somebody like that have an impact in the game?
Is it as simple as just boiling down who runs the ball better, you think?
I think so too, and I think Lazard. This is like a recurring theme. This kid's going to be really special the next 3 years, I think. And if you saw what they did with him, you and I, they're going to line him up in different positions. They isolated him. The one touchdown pass he caught, they isolated him on a linebacker, and he beat a linebacker coming out. The linebacker's not ever going to be able to cover Alan Lazard. So I really like Iowa State's offense. I think they're more explosive than Iowa's. I think that gives the Cyclones a little bit of advantage. It'll be interesting to see how Iowa attacks that spread offense.
The other interesting thing, of course, and I think you mentioned this a little earlier, was what sort of defensive alignment Iowa State will use. Is it going to go 3-4, 4-3? And Paul Rhodes basically suggested that the 4-3 would be better for that physical sort of offense. And the question is Iowa State's defensive front physical enough to stay with Iowa? Quickness is what, from what Dale Pearson said, is going to be a key to this, and I can see that. But when you get in the fourth quarter, are they going to be able to stay with Iowa, keep them from running the ball if the game's close and Iowa has a lead? Now, predictions. Who's going to win?
I think Cyclones on their home field. I'd give them a slight edge by maybe 4 points or so.
Nelly?
Yeah, I like the Cyclones at home.
I will also go Iowa State at home. I'd say 24-21, and it'll kind of buck the trend a little bit because I believe the visiting team has won maybe the last 3 in this series. So, but maybe cold net and field goal late, maybe a long touchdown pass or a long drive in the final minute will decide it. That's not the only big game we have around here these days. You and I, as we just suggested, lost its opener to Iowa State, and it faces a pretty tough task when it opens its Unidome schedule this Saturday, 1 o'clock against Eastern Washington. And the first question I think we should try to answer here is, it's only week 2, but is this a must-win game for the Panthers, Nelly?
Boy, that one's a hard one because they've got such a difficult stretch here. But I don't want to say it's a must-win, but they need. It is a must-win. I think it's a tough team coming in. They they got to rebound a little bit. It's going to be tough to win this Eastern Washington team. I mean, they put 42 points up against Oregon, and I know Oregon had some young guys playing defense, but that's impressive. I think they need to get some momentum going because it's Cal Poly next week, who just come off beating Montana. Then you get a week off, and then you go Illinois State and then North Dakota State. I mean, this is a tough stretch, and to survive it, they need a kind of a signature winner early.
Is Eastern Washington's offense the most impressive thing about that team?
Oh, incredible! They're just explosive all over. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball. This wide receiver, and it's Cooper Krupp, or maybe it's Connor Krupp. Cooper, I think it is. But anyway, Oregon's head coach Mark Helfrich was extremely impressed. He said, I think we made him look all galaxy tonight. He had 16 catches, 240 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns. I mean, he's 6'2", 215. He's got 40 career touchdown passes, over 3,000 career receiving yards. Special player. You and I is going to, the one thing that you and I has advantage, the best part of their entire defense is their secondary. So they'll have a good plan of trying to contain him. And the one thing that Oregon didn't do good with them is, I think I read this stat, it's an interesting stat. Eastern Washington averaged 3.8 yards per pass attempt, not completion or whatever. So they passed it like 44 times and they had like 30 completions. So they were averaging, the other thing is they had somewhere around over 100 yards of receiving after contact. So they were really breaking tackles and making moves in the open space. They do a great job of getting the receivers into open space and letting them create.
Yep. Nick, we're going to make you the head coach here for a minute.
Oh, geez.
You're in the locker room, or you're looking at film this week of what you saw against Iowa State, and you know that Eastern Washington's coming in. You know you're going to have to score points. My question is, do you stick with what you know? Do you stick with Aaron Bailey at quarterback? Do you go in another direction? What sort of adjustments might you make if you were running that offense?
That's a good question. I think you almost have to take a look at somebody that can extend the defenses and throw the ball downfield, and maybe go back to Cole Morgan. But I just don't know if if Bailey can't throw the ball downfield. I think they're going to be in trouble if they have to be a one-dimensional rushing attack. And I think it really put you and I into a tough position. Maybe not having a clear-cut guy to go to heading into week one, and now you're gonna. You see a rough performance from Bailey out of that first week, and now you have those questions kind of lingering into week two, and if you don't see a lot out of Bailey in week two, what are you going to do from there?
Certainly, I don't think Aaron Bailey answered a lot of questions with the performance against Iowa State. He struck me as being a more physically, much more assertive sort of runner than Breon Carnes was last year. I think he is somewhat of a better passer, although accuracy may still be an issue with him. It's only 1 week, of course, but we saw him throwing on the run a lot, we saw him throwing under pressure a lot, and I think they're going to have some improvements made across the board. My sense is, and I'm only guessing here, that Mark Farley will give Aaron Bailey at least another week. If things falter here, I think we might see Cole Morgan again. For all I know, we'll see Eli Dunn again, but it's hard to believe that if UNI is struggling in the second half of that game, there won't be some changes made.
I guess the other question is, let's say UNI, drops a game against a very tough Eastern Washington team, loses out on the road to Cal Poly. You're going into your conference season. Then do you look towards somebody like Dunn, the young guy with some upside, and try to get him some reps there in the Missouri Valley Football Conference?
Well, that's an intriguing way to look at it, because excuse me, if you get to the point where you have to win the Valley football title to get to the playoffs, do you want to go with Eli Dunn? Mm-hmm. Now, my guess is probably not. But if you're at a point, let's say 3, 4, 5 games down the road, and you're struggling, you're not looking like a playoff run is not possible, then you might see that. Yeah. But for the moment, I think you will see the veterans going there. Nelly, what do you?
I think Bailey needs another crack. I think you cracked it on the head earlier. Iowa State's defensive line put him under a lot of pressure. I think that correlated towards later in the game. Instead of looking and sitting back there, he was looking to run a little sooner than probably he would have liked, coaches would have liked, and when he could have probably stuck in there a little bit longer and seen some things develop. They did try to go down the field twice, and both of those balls were thrown out of bounds, but both times I think it was Therese Frown, they tried to go deep down the sideline twice with, and both of them, he was in tight coverage, he wasn't open. I think they have to give Bailey another crack at it. I really was impressed with what he could do when he got, he could make some things happen with his feet, and if he can get comfortable in that passing offense and get maybe find a guy he can click with in that passing game, Logan Cunningham, or I thought he found something a little bit with Darian Miller out of the backfield, and I think they're really going to start using that a lot. On the one drive 3 times for almost 50 yards. I think he could be it. Cole Morgan can stretch the field probably a little better, but it's what do you want? With your game, with that little with Joe Davis' offense, I think they want to run the ball a little bit with the quarterback, and Bailey probably gives them that best option. For all we know, and there are a lot of good defenses in UNI's future this season, Iowa State might very well have the best secondary it'll see all year. And I like Therese Frown. I've liked him since last year. I thought he's got a lot of talent. I think he can be a game-changing receiver for them, but he needs the opportunity to get open, and the quarterback, whether it's Bailey or somebody else, needs the opportunity to throw him the ball. So it may very well be a key going down the road, just as much as the quarterbacks, as you suggested, the play of the offensive line will be very, very important for what happens to UNI going forward. That's about it, except for one more parting shot. Iowa and Iowa State are playing this week for the Cyhawk Trophy. It goes to it's part of this ongoing series to whoever wins in basketball, women's basketball, wrestling, and so on, gets this award at the end of the year. Excuse me. And we, of course, college football is renowned for having trophies, awards, nicknames attached to games, and here are a couple of the oldest ones, the more interesting ones. And my alma mater, the University of Minnesota, is involved with 2 of these. The Minnesota Gophers in Wisconsin play for Paul Bunyan's Axe. It's listed as the oldest FBS rivalry. It began in 1890, and I find it's kind of interesting. They play for a fictional object in Paul Bunyan's Axe, sort of like the Gophers' chances of getting back to the Rose Bowl this year. Minnesota and Iowa, of course, will play for Floyd of Rosedale, the legendary pig. That comes later in the year, and it's always kind of fun to see one side or the other run over the sidelines and grab a bronze pig. That weighs, 90-some pounds?
Whatever it was, yeah. Oregon State played for the Platypus Trophy. Now, I have no idea why they play for the Platypus Trophy. I didn't bother to look it up, but that's kind of an interesting choice for two schools that close, and I don't even know where the nearest platypus is in relation to this great state of Oregon. Utah and Utah State play for the Beehive Boot. Tennessee and Kentucky play the Battle for the Barrel, and you can speculate all you want on what actually was in the barrel. And Georgia and Georgia Tech, this rivalry game is known as Clean Old-Fashioned Hate. Now, I don't know what that means exactly, and I don't know if there's a trophy involved with winning the Clean Old-Fashioned Hate game, but certainly they win points for honesty because apparently these two schools do not like each other whatsoever. So on that note, we will say goodbye. Thanks for listening. And in another week, we'll be back at you with another edition of the Paperboyz. Until then, you're encouraged to catch up with us in print or at WCFcourier.com. So long, everybody.